Hello, hi, how are you? And welcome to another podcast by George. Joining us on the phone, I couldn't be happier, absolutely delighted, a political hero of mine. Cindy Axne, Iowa's newest elected U.S. representative, is moving about the district today, and she's agreed to come on the cell phone as she motors from Lacona to, I think I saw you're headed to St. Charles today?
Yep, well, we actually did St. Charles to Lacona. We're headed up to Polk County right now.
Oh, okay, great. Well, for people that aren't that acquainted with Cindy Axne yet, let me read this quick little bio that I have. Cindy Axne is an Iowan, a small business owner, parent, community activist, and U.S. representative from Iowa's 3rd Congressional District. Cindy is a fifth-generation Iowan who grew up on the south side of Des Moines. And again, our synergy is I'm close here. Cindy's childhood included weekends and summers spent on her maternal grandparents' farm in Warren County, where I grew up, 4-H activities, and playing 6-on-6 basketball for the Valley High Tigers. After graduating from Valley High in Des Moines, Cindy received a bachelor's in journalism, as I did, from the University of Iowa. And after undergrad, Cindy worked in strategic planning and leadership development in the Tribune Company in Chicago, while earning an MBA from the Kellogg School at Northwestern University. In 2007, when her older son started kindergarten, Cindy learned their full-day kindergarten was not available to every child in the West Des Moines public schools, with eligibility determined by a lottery. Well, Cindy was outraged at the inequity of the system and concerned that students were being shortchanged. She spent the following academic year advocating and negotiating with principals, the school board, and the superintendent. And after nearly a year, her efforts paid off, and full-day kindergarten was made available to all students in the district. Cindy is active in her church, Sacred Heart, a Catholic church, and serves as a mentor with the John Papa John Entrepreneurial Center at the University of Iowa. She lives in West Des Moines with John and their teenage sons, Gunnar and Rafe. I love those names, and we've got something else in common that we're going to get to here very shortly. But I got to say this, when I think of Representative Axne, I think about this past fall. Everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people have political signs on their yards, and when the election's over with, you go get your signs, and some of your folks won, and some of them didn't, and it's happy and it's sad. But we were absolutely thrilled. My wife had been working the phones and for Representative Axne to get elected, and it was close. But you won, and we just couldn't be more thrilled about it. My wife wanted to make sure that that she was working for you. So I got to get that in right off the top.
Well, tell her thank you so much, and I really appreciate it. And I'm not kidding when I say all along I said, if this race is won on hard work and the best supporters out there, we're going to win. And it's what we did, because it took people like your wife, and so many others that did call time, that knocked on doors in literally torrential downpours. And we had 1,200 people come in and out of shifts in one of our worst rainy days just before the election. And it really was that hard work, and we all know that's the Iowa spirit. So this was a team effort. I'm so grateful to be representing us.
Some of those yard signs, you just don't know what to do with them. You throw them. I didn't throw away my Axne for Congress yard sign. That's in the garage. I'm hanging on to that because that was a big moment. And I got to say, it's a kind of a blue wave that we had, particularly in the House of Representatives, with the election of you and a lot of other women and Democrats taking seats. And, I go back to the Dillon generation, back to the 60s and 70s. And the times, finally, they do appear to be changing. And it's much needed. I've sat here all these decades, Cindy, and watched these, what I call, Don Henley had a line in one of his songs, these tired old men that we elect kings send us off to war and impoverish those that are the least among us. And I'm hopeful that this all gets changed because of people like you, and I know other people in the Democratic Party are too. Your district is interesting to me. I looked at the electoral map. You've got this largest urban center in the state in Des Moines, and then it runs out west right along the interstate. And as you're headed west, on the left side of the interstate, literally, is Cindy Axne country. On the right side of the interstate, Stephen King. How does that work?
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned, I've got the most populated county in the state with Polk County, and then the second least populated with Ringgold County. So, we have the majority of our voters, of course, are in the Polk County and suburban areas, but then 16 counties total, as you mentioned, going all the way over to Council Bluffs. I've always said that Iowans, if presented with the information, are, make the right choice. We're smart, we're resourceful, and we understand that we've got to solve problems, and we can move towards ways to help everybody be successful and, increase opportunity for our communities. And I think my race was proof of that we don't have to, it's not about political party leadership and serving them. It's about doing the right things by your district. And that voice of a fifth-generation Iowan that I am, a small business owner, a mom who's in those struggles with our families every single day, came through to the people in this district as somebody that they knew would champion their values. And I knew that if those decisions being made in Washington were hurting me and my family, then they were hurting other families as well. And that's what I went out and talked to our families about, the issues that they're facing, those kitchen table issues, how we put more money back in people's pockets, how we reduce expenses for them on things like prescription drugs and health care, and make sure that everybody has opportunity, whether it's through trade schools and apprenticeship programs, 2-year or 4-year college, and bringing good jobs to our communities. These aren't things that are insurmountable. They're absolutely doable. It's just a matter of putting, your resources where your values are. And I think that really resonated with people, that we can solve problems. That's the kind of nature of the people that we have in this state and in this district. And we need a voice in Washington that's actually going to make sure that Iowans' issues are being heard.
I mean, that's well said. 100% down the line, I agree with that. And Stephen King's a thorn in my side. I don't want to spend my time on my podcast with you talking about him, but his loss early on was your gain and the state of Iowa's gain. This guy, because of his so many issues, none of which are good, lost his seat on the Agriculture Committee. And you got it. And I know some people probably looked at that and they thought, well, yeah, a woman on an agriculture committee, that needs to be an old, wrinkled up old farmer guy. That's who needs that seat. No, you've got the bona fides. You've got the pedigree as far as agriculture is concerned. You grew up in a farm family, 5 generations here in central Iowa, Warren County.
That's right. That's well. Well, my dad grew up. His family's from Marion County, so just over the district line.
Okay. Yeah.
But also here from Madison County, is my grandma on my dad's side from Madison County area, St. Charles, where we just left area. So I'm Southern Iowa to its core. And my mom grew up on a farm outside of Milo. Her family farmed very traditional, couple thousand acres. Corn, soybeans, and hogs. So I grew up on a family farm, essentially, and seeing how my mom's bigger extended family were key players in making sure that their family had opportunity. I understood the value of caring for our land and being good stewards of that, and also making sure that we help people within our community. And I think that's what our family-owned farms really represent. Are people who understand that it's not just about them, it's about making sure that our rural communities have opportunity and that they protect and grow those businesses that support the ag community, that they protect and grow things like small libraries and keeping post office in our small towns. And, that's how I grew up, making sure that we protected those things. And I can tell you one thing, by far and above, we still have the best fireworks in Milo on the 4th of July.
Yeah, these towns are very proud of their fireworks. Carlisle does a great job. Norwalk does too. Yeah, that's a big deal. And having grown up in this part of the state, I will say this, farmers in your district need a little assistance. They need a little help. They need an advocate. They need a champion. And it may kind of rub people the wrong way. If you're up in, like Steve King's territory, if you're up in the north of Highway 20 area in Iowa, my God, that's the greatest farmland this side of the River Nile. I mean, that black earth that's up there, they just want to protect that. They just want to keep the status quo. They don't really need assistance. It was given to them by their parents with that farm and that soil. Down here, not so much. The farms tend to be a little smaller. The fields are smaller. The soil isn't quite as good, and it's harder. It's tougher to make it down here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really thrilled to be on Agriculture Committee. I can tell you, I believe I would have had a seat on there whether or not Congressman King was on there or not. Leadership certainly understood how important it was to have a Democratic voice on there. that understands that we can help our farmers increase their yields and protect our soil at the same time, and make sure that, we protect our water. As you mentioned, our small and mid-sized Iowa farmers have always been good stewards of our environment. And my goal is to make sure that we expand that we open up new markets for our farmers, that we protect the equity that they get, that we ensure that small to mid-sized farms, organic farms, minority-owned farms have an opportunity to be successful as well, and that we, continue to be leaders when it comes to the agriculture community. But I'll tell you what, we're missing opportunity, and I'm going to be a voice for that. I'm already working on bringing a field hearing here for agriculture. That's been agreed upon by the chair of the Agriculture Committee, and I want people to come and see what it looks like for our ag community here in Iowa, whether it's a large-scale farm, a small farm, organic farm, whether you're an implement dealer who's suffering because you're not bringing in as many sales because of this trade war and our farmers not being able to take in as much revenue, small businesses who are, community-owned banks that support a lot of our ag community, they're hurting. So I'm bringing leadership here to really see on the ground what ag looks like today, what our farmers are doing to be good stewards of the environment, and how impacts like this trade war have hurt our farmers. And then when you add insult to injury with like shutting down the government and closing FSA offices and our farmers not being able to access capital in that process, the impact that it has on our community. So I'm thrilled to be that voice. I'm also on the Financial Services Committee, which is an exclusive committee, and I am on Housing and Rural Development Subcommittee. I wanted to make sure I was able to sit on a subcommittee that could help our rural areas. I'm also on investor protections. So I'm really thinking about how I can help our district be more successful. We obviously have a heck of a lot of insurance companies, and as I mentioned, small banks as well. And so I'm a great fit for the Financial Services Committee as well as the Ag Committee, and being able to blend those two industries because they're really important for our district.
I can't agree more. And you're interesting. Your district is very interesting because of that dichotomy that exists. It's a tale of two worlds, actually, two economies, the haves and the have-nots. You've got the Fortune 500 insurance companies in Des Moines, and a lot of people that don't get out and don't travel around southern Iowa away from the interstates may not realize that, but these towns are struggling in the southern part of this state. As you get closer down to Missouri, I don't know how or why anybody would ever vote Republican, but that's for another argument another day. But my dad used to say farmers can't stand prosperity when they vote Republican, but Mount Ayr couldn't keep their lights on. Is that right?
Yeah, well, thank you for bringing that up. My second cousin's from Mount Ayr, but when I visited folks in Mount Ayr, they told me a story about having to pool their own money together just to get new street lamps for their town square because there aren't resources in communities like that. You go to Des Moines, if you went to the East Village and the lights went out, my gosh, within 24 hours they'd expect those to be fixed, and they would be. But you go to a town like Mount Ayr when there are no local resources to support development and maintenance of our communities, they have to put money out of their own savings, out of what their family needs, just to keep the lights on. That's unacceptable. Those are the stories I'm bringing to Congress. I have talked to people within the Democratic caucus about these issues. I am trying to make them acutely aware of the variables within this country that keep people in many of our communities from having as much access to opportunity as our big urban areas have.
And the other thing that they need access to, and those chickens are coming home to roost for some of these folks, sadly, is health care. And I know that's right at the top of your list.
Absolutely. So I'm grateful that we were able to pass an appropriations bill to keep government open. So now we can move forward with starting to pass those bills that address the issues that I talked about in the race that we're facing here in Iowa. Lowering the cost of prescription drugs, covering every single person with pre-existing conditions, and making sure that there's never an opportunity again for state courts to basically declare parts of the Affordable Care Act unconstitutional, which is what they're trying to do right now, and that would take away coverage from people with pre-existing conditions. So we can't have that happen. So our first order of business now we'll be moving forward on infrastructure and health care. And the first two things with healthcare that we're going to do is protect people with pre-existing conditions and ensure that we lower the cost of prescription drugs.
My God, thank you. And thank you for it's been eye-opening. You hit the ground running. And again, I don't know why I keep flashing back to Steve King. This guy never sponsored legislation. He never introduced a bill. You've already been on several bills and co-sponsored several critical pieces of legislation, maybe the most important of which right now is keeping the government open.
Yep, absolutely. No, I have co-sponsored over a dozen bills, I think around 16. I have been asked to be an original co-sponsor of many bills. The first bill I was an original co-sponsor of, was a very conservative Republican from North Carolina came over and said, listen, I heard you're interested in keeping more money in our local communities and in particular our rural areas. Would you be interested in signing on to, as an original co-sponsor with me and Jimmy Gomez, who's a Democrat, the GREAT Act, which is the Grant Resources and Transparency Act? And what it does is it streamlines our very convoluted grant process, which is 26 different systems and 26 different departments. It allows smaller communities who don't have resources to manage those types of things to get access to that grant money. And then it's a much more accountable and transparent back end, so it holds government accountable to its spending. So it's an efficiency bill, it's an accountability bill, but it's also a bill to get more money into the pockets of local communities. So I was thrilled to hear that, that concern I had made it all the way over, to this other representative, where she sought me out to say, listen, we think you'd be a good voice on this bill. So good stuff is happening. And, tangible stuff is happening, and I'm thrilled to be a part of it.
That's thrilling to hear, because I hear from some of my friends that say bipartisanship is dead. It can't be done. Forget about it. Tear it up, tear it down, take control, take power, and Democrats do it your way. That's what the Republicans did, basically, and we're still suffering the ill effects of that. But some people believe that can't be done. But I take it that you are an advocate of bipartisanship.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always going to really support the values that I believe the Democratic Party represents, the values of hardworking Iowans, those values that protect people, like we talked about, make sure everybody has access to quality, affordable health care, make sure every single kid has a good public education and some type of post-secondary education that helps them get a good job, that protects our workers. Those are the things I'm always going to fight for. And quite honestly, those aren't Democratic or Republican talking points. Those are smart talking points that I can tell you every single person wants to get behind. I think I think those messages get lost in the way some of our representatives try to put those out there. And instead of doing their job as a representative for their district, they try and get talking points and sound bites. And that's not how you get things done. So I know there's opportunity for us to solve these problems, and I really think it's important to have people like me, and we elected a lot of people like me, workhorses, both the great women that got out there and really great guys that are going to be these good voices.
Good on you. That's Cindy Axne. Go, Cindy. I just love that. All right, before I let you go here, it's funny how maybe it's because it's so near and dear to my heart, but there's always a hockey connection with everyone, it seems like. And as I understand it, you've got a hockey family. Is that correct?
I do. I've got a son that's a defenseman for the Des Moines Capitals, Gunner. So he's grown up playing hockey, and my husband's a hockey player. So once you're a hockey family, you're always a hockey family.
Well, I got to be crossing paths with your husband on the ice and not knowing it, because I'm playing in men's league. I'm in the B League at Hickman Arena on Sunday night. I'll keep an eye out for him, and those boys will be up, and they'll be playing pickup and maybe men's league if I can hang on that long, and maybe I'll get to be on the ice with them. And I love the one son's name. My God, if I could, Gunner. Man, nobody's ever called me Gunner when it comes to playing hockey, but I mean that's a great name, Gunner and Rafe. Well, I'm not going to wear it out. I'm going to let you go because I want to come back and revisit once in a while on the podcast. So I know your time's precious, and again, I appreciate it very much. And she's on her way back into Des Moines already today, and this is we're not even noon yet. You've been to Lacona and St. Charles, and that's the kind of hard work and diligence that Representative Cindy Axne brings to her new office in the U.S. House of Representatives. And today's guest on another podcast by George.